First of all, thank you very much for the invitation to have the chance to give a talk here, and thanks to the Embassy of Korea, and thank you for being here and having the opportunity to talk about a project which is indeed very close to Bonn. I'm also very happy to talk to all the international participants. I've heard that they're coming from all around the world, so from that point of view, really looking forward to present this project to you. It reminds me a bit of about 20 years ago. I think that was the start of the photovoltaics at costs which were above 50 cents per kilowatt hour, which are now below 5 cents per kilowatt hour. And if you make a bit of a comparison today, then it feels a bit like the hydrogen is in the same space to start now and to take off. But in this context, it's very important also to share with you really that what is actually happening, not only that what everybody wants, because we hear lots of gigawatts and megawatts to be installed over the next couple of years. I believe a couple of gigawatts by 2030. Range between 2 and above 10 in Europe. So from that point of view, very exciting to see what is now really happening. So with this, maybe best to go to the next slide. Which is a legal disclaimer actually, so we can also go over that because legal disclaimer for the presentations that we are giving. Now, the project itself, to give you a bit of an idea, number one, I think very important to highlight at this stage, it is a project which is getting a grant from the fuel cell hydrogen joint undertaking from the European side, where we are very happy on that we have it, because without that grant, we wouldn't have been able to implement that. We are doing this in a consortia. It is the largest PEM electrolyzer worldwide today in the construction, and also at the time and moment when it's going to start operating in 2021. And the target of my presentation is pretty much to show you how that looks like today, to give you an idea on this. The target is really to use that first time in a refinery, to use the hydrogen on a continuous basis. The demand of hydrogen is very strong. So 180,000 tons is the demand in a refinery, just to give you an idea. This 10 megawatt electrolyzer is only producing 1,300 tons a year, 4 tons a day, which is for these kind of industrial complexes small, but at the same time it is huge if you look into the transport sector, because the demand there with about 500 hydrogen cars in Germany is substantially smaller. So this is far too big for that. So you see already how this is kind of being brought to fruition to build a bridge between industry and transport, and how it plays a role to get the costs down, to show how such an electrolyzer can work, and how to mature the whole technology around it. Just to give you a bit of an idea, this started actually 2017 with a call from the fuel cell hydrogen joint undertaking. Project started in 2018. First time to design this. I think we are working together with ITM, electrolyzer manufacturer in the UK. For them, this is also the largest project that they have been doing, which works very well. But I think we are all kind of in the mode to build really this project first time also in a building, and to show how this is going to operate then as of next year. Further partners are Sintef in Norway, ThinkStep, formerly ThinkStep, now Sphera in Germany for life cycle analysis, and Element Energy in the UK for the dissemination part. So a very well functioning consortium. Key point here is, as you can see, we have been spending the last couple of years really with the design of this project and to start the construction. If you move on to the next slide, then we can see when we really started the construction, which was in the middle of last year. The size of the project, 10 megawatt, amount of capital spent is around 16 to 20 million, around 18 million probably at the end, around that. It gets funding, as I said, from the European side. It's a first of this size. I'm hoping that we will see more of those coming forward over the next few years. I believe this is a really stepping stone to the 100 megawatt class, which is going to appear soon, hopefully. But these type of projects are really of utmost importance. And if you look into the development of the fuel cell hydrogen joint undertaking, starting with these kind of industrial scale electrolyzers, first in the wind industry, then steel, and now in the refinery side, this is a kind of laying the ground for the future, really. So it has been very helpful to be able to participate in this. If you go on to the next slide, I show you how the design of this electrolyzer looks like. It's a building where this is brought into. Maybe you've seen earlier electrolyzers in the 2 megawatt scale, which are normally in containers. This is different. So we have been making a custom-made building around it, also kind of improving on the what we say in the refinery language, often utilities, or the part where you kind of prepare the water, where you purify the oxygen, where you also kind of purify the hydrogen, and all these kind of equipment, large electrical equipment as well. So I think that is kind of brought into the building and has been designed specifically for the needs of this 10 megawatt electrolyzer. This electrolyzer, as you see in the bottom middle picture, picture taken in January, is sitting in the middle of the refinery. The refinery is the largest refinery in Germany, and we have been putting it there because it's very close to the hydrogen lines, and the hydrogen can be immediately used in the hydrogen network inside the refinery. It comes out with about 20 bar. It is used at an even higher pressure inside the refinery, but it can be fully integrated into that what is happening in the refinery. If we move on to the next slide, then you see that this is, of course, getting interest, and I think we were happy that we had the Commissioner Kadri Simpson from the EU, DG Energy, in the plant in July this year, together with the Minister of Economic Affairs in North Rhine-Westphalia, and also the Director of the Fuel Cell Hydrogen Joint Undertaking. And it is clearly a lighthouse project because it's kind of setting the scene into the future. Also the application and the speeches given there were clearly indicating the direction to take, that this needs to grow further and needs to go into 100 megawatt or larger if possible. But one key point to remember in this context, because that was also discussed in the previous session, the business case is very challenging, and I think we have been able to make this work for the 10 megawatt. But the larger these kits are getting, the more investment is required, and at the same time we see that the grant levels have also certain limits, because also the money, the investment money from the grant side is limited. So what is very much required in this context is a fast move on the regulation side, so that there is a kind of business case to do the investments, because the time is short to achieve all the targets which have been set. And as you can see in our project, we started in 2017 and starts operating in 2021. So all this takes a bit of time. Now, if you go on to the next slide, I show you how it looks actually today, and shows you how the design, which is quite futuristic. Also, to give you an idea on the size of this, the size is about 20 by 30 meters of the building, so it's not huge really, so it's kind of a reasonable size. In the center of this, as you see in the kind of left bottom side, you see the electrolyzers. There are 5 2 megawatt sets in there. These 2 megawatt electrolyzers have been tested earlier. They are also kind of supplied in containers from ITM. And that has been the kind of technology at the time. But we see now that the technology is developing further, and there's more to come, especially when you go into the larger sizes. So I think this is kind of great to see, and it reminds me largely also on the developments on the photovoltaics. On the right-hand side, you see how the design that we had beginning of this year or end of last year, or even earlier, how that is now put into place. And you see how in the center of the building, the part where the roof is still missing, that will be the location of the electrolyzers, and how the electrical equipment is placed already. And the manufacturing of the Venturi roof is currently happening in parallel, and we are waiting actually for the electrolyzers to arrive so that we can install them, and then we can start operating this in 2021. And we are of course very excited to see this happening. Now to continue on this, because this is clearly the heart of the presentation, but there's definitely a bit more to be said about this. And I believe the next slide is giving this overview to this. Again, maybe the partners, as I mentioned earlier, don't want to miss them, because all of them are contributing to the success of this project. Key is, of course, the European side with the fuel cell hydrogen joint undertaking with their support, clearly Lighthouse project, and helping us to go through this. Now going to the next slide, which is also the final slide that I want to share with you today. Because it shows a bit where we stand today and where we want to go. So you see in the center actually the project with the 10 megawatt electrolyzer and the type of things that we do today. So it is in principle grid connected, but we will have power purchase agreements to get green power into the electrolyzer. We will have the connection to the industrial site with the refinery to use the green hydrogen there. We will have a connection to the primary and secondary grid balancing, and we'll test these kind of business cases, which are small but kind of interesting, definitely, but they are not sufficient to make the case to build such a unit. And then on the right hand side you see to some extent that what we are kind of working on, what we want to implement. There's clearly the link to use this kind of high grade fuel cell grade hydrogen for the transport sector. I think there will be a retail site next to the refinery for hydrogen, which is going to be in place by end of this year. So I think we definitely want to supply that. But there are also a bus company, one of the biggest player actually in Europe, with community buses, 50, which are going to be operational by end of this year or next year. So really one of the largest fleets in Europe, also with ambition to grow further. So that's also a target to supply them. And we are also kind of looking into this, or we understand this as a kind of platform for e-fuels, which is a natural fit, of course, with the refinery, which is producing fuels. And these fuels are especially of interest for the aviation sector, which is one of these hard to decarbonize sectors where there are little alternatives and where this could play a role. But you can see already that you need to have these developments on the electrolyzers, plus a lot of other developments to make this work. And there are big challenges to make this and to demonstrate how this can be done on the commercial side. With this, I would like to kind of conclude my presentation. I hope that I gave you a bit of a glimpse on that, what is happening really next to Bonn, not very far away. And we are jointly looking forward to start the plant. And again, my thanks for the invitation to give the presentation, and hope to stay in contact with all of you. Thank you.